But yeah, like it's been like an amazing like 2 years like of this project, and we mentioned like 253 subs in 2 years, which is like small to some people, but to us, like I think that's a big deal. I feel like in the second year things were like more refined and things were like getting ready to like take off a little bit more. Like we laid the groundwork in the first year, and I think that helped like build up the audience like in the second year. It attracted more people. Welcome everyone to the Fox and Burger podcast. I'm Michael the Matcha Fox.
And I'm Burger.
And today we'll be talking about something very special.
In this episode, we talked about some major updates in our lives outside of the podcast, stories and thoughts from the various conventions we've been to here in Taiwan, and future plans for our podcast and other productions.
This is it, folks, our wrap-up for 2022. We want to thank everyone who's been on our journey across Asia so far. We couldn't have done it without you guys. We wish you guys a happy holidays and a happy new year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the last episode of 2022. Wow, episode 27.
Yeah, and right around the end of 2022 as of this recording.
Yeah, it has been, like, 2 years? Almost 2 years. Almost a full 2 years since we began the pod.
Yeah. That's what I've been thinking about all this month, actually. And there's been a lot that's been going on since the start of this podcast. We've done a lot so far.
Yeah, we've had, obviously this is, the 27th episode. But if we go into our YouTube stats, we can see that it actually grew a little bit last time I checked. It's 253 now. I think last time I checked it was 252. So thank you for that new sub. And then we have 10K views on YouTube in total.
And I think for a channel that has been active for around 2 years, 250 something subs and 10,000 views total across all of our videos, I think we're doing pretty good.
I think the podcast for sure is a niche podcast. For example, there's not a lot of furry podcasts. I feel like in the grand scheme of things, I think very few people touch upon furry, but then even fewer people touch upon furries in Asia. Now, I think that's a positive and a negative. The positive is that it's unique, it's new, it's novel. I think the negative, though, of course, is we're very niche. It's something only a specific group of people are going to want. That being said, I feel like our numbers are respectable. I feel like our numbers for YouTube are pretty respectable. Yeah,
I absolutely agree that we are a more unique podcast and a more niche one at that. But there are benefits in that we do have people who want to watch our podcast, simply because they want to know more about furries in Asia. I mean, that's basically our goal. Our goal is to bridge the gap between the East and the West, or anyone who's curious about furry communities over here in Asia.
But it's also important to remind you and to remind viewers that actually we're still trying to break into the Western audience. I know that there are people interested in Asia, but I feel like a lot of our followers and subs, actually those are people in Asia though. So I think I don't want you to misunderstand the numbers. But I think that there's definitely more potential, and it's really just about getting the name out there, right? It's one thing to satisfy people in Asia interested in Asia, but I think I would definitely love to see more people outside of Asia watching and listening to the pod.
Yeah, exactly.
So on Twitter, we have 172 followers. So that actually jumped up from last time I checked, which was 170. So thank you to those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you to everyone who has followed us on Twitter, and people who want to follow us on Twitter. You can look at the description down below, or later we will tell you our Twitter handle as well. But I think I also want to mention that we have almost as much followers on Twitter as we do YouTube subs.
And I'm honestly kind of surprised about that because, we don't actually use our Twitter for more than just an announcements kind of a bulletin board. Now, we do want to change that, but I'm actually kind of surprised people would follow the Twitter as much. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you for following us so far.
And we do want to add more to the Twitter. For example, we're going to be uploading way more snippets next year, starting this month, actually. And so there's going to be stuff to look forward to, like more snippets and maybe like some polls and stuff like that. So definitely keep an eye out on the Twitter. Like things will be coming. Good things will be coming.
Yeah, I honestly can't wait as well.
It's funny because like we usually interview our guests and we usually have guests on the podcast in our episodes, but it's actually just going to be the two of us for today. And we're mainly just going to kind of talk about like our lives and our updates and things we thought about, like a year review, basically, like we did last year. So let's start with you, Burger. So like what's been going on lately?
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about what I've been doing for the past year. The biggest thing is that I moved to a new city. I moved up to Taipei.
Mm-hmm.
And Taipei is a lot different from where I was before in Zhongli. Well, I wouldn't say it's a lot different. I would say there are plenty of things here that are different, but I do really enjoy my time here in Taipei. I enjoy the different kinds of public transit, like the MRT. I kind of like that the buses are also a little bit cheaper than they were anywhere around Taoyuan, where I was before.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's surprising. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so whenever I have to take the bus to go to work, then I actually save around 3 NT like every bus ride compared to if I was just over in Zhongli. Who knew, right? Yeah.
Not a big number, but yeah, still something.
I would say every penny counts. Now, the public transit is a little bit cheaper, but unfortunately, everything else in Taipei is more expensive.
But usually not by that much, though.
Yeah, not by that much, but it's enough that,
you have to like pay attention a little bit more.
Now, I didn't just move to Taipei just for fun or just because.
Oh, really?
I actually had, a work-related reason in that I had to change jobs. In order to stay here in Taiwan, I basically had to change to a different job than the one I had over in Zhongli.
What was going on with that?
It's related to my work visa, basically. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to where I can just live in Taiwan freely and wherever I want. It kind of has to be tied down to my job.
Well, actually, like if I'm not mistaken, it's not just you. It's just the law. If I'm not mistaken, in Taiwan, for people who don't know, you have to have a full-time job from your employer, which will then allow them to give you a work permit and ARC. The ARC is what allows you to stay in Taiwan for like a long period of time.
Exactly. Yes. But right now, I am comfortable. I have a job here in Taiwan, and I'm still able to do the podcast and go around and be a furry. Speaking of which, being a furry, back in October, I was part of the concert that was in Infurnity 2022. And I felt so honored to be a part of that show, actually. I really was so excited and so honored to be a part of that. So basically, the reason I was even able to be part of that concert was because of you, Michael. Because you introduced me to one of the other musicians that was going to be part of the... Yeah, you remember Teru?
Yeah, I remember Teru.
Yeah, great guy, by the way. Really great guy.
I believe he's more of a composer than a DJ, but like he's still under that category musician he's Taiwanese for the audience. We'll shout him out. We'll just flash a picture of his persona.
Yep. And he was part of the band as the person who was in charge of programming the drum parts because unfortunately there was no drummer who could join us.
So the drums weren't like live. They were like a recorded track kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And any other musical elements that we couldn't do with our instruments, he added in as well.
Cool.
Yeah, but we had other great musicians as well. We had Paruto, we had Polar.
Paruto been on the show. Polar been on the show. Shout out to those guys.
Yeah, I'm so glad that Polar could actually come. I really wanted to meet him in real life.
Yeah, he like flew in like from Australia, and it was back when like we were saying about the opening of Taiwan, right? Like Taiwan opened up like in mid-October, and I think Polar was one of those people who just waited. Like it wasn't the opening, it was the quarantine actually. Like Taiwan was open, it was just like are you willing to like go through that quarantine? So Polar made it in the end, yeah.
Yeah, I believe this is one of those cases where good things comes to those who wait. Yeah. And this was actually the first musical performance that I had in like years. So to be able to
because you were like, you studied music, right?
I studied music. I performed for a couple of bands and performers before,
Like
back in the
Texas.
United States.
Right.
Yeah. But I haven't been able to do that when I was in mainland China or here in Taiwan. So to be able to do that, not only that, but for furries, for a convention, that was that was amazing.
Such an honor.
I still feel like I could have practiced and rehearsed a little bit more, but that just happens. You know, you're never going to be 100% perfect, but that's just how it is. And last thing before I pass the mic to you, I have a new fursuit in the works.
Oh, okay. How much can we know?
I can tell you a little bit about the design and the basic character. So this is a pink angel dragon by the name of Tongue Hai. It took me a while to actually find the best name to give this character because I wanted it to have like an actual Mandarin Chinese name. Just because I wanted it to help represent a new chapter in my life. Yeah. So I'm going to flash that name on the screen. Basically, that name translates to something like soaring over the oceans. Basically what I did when I went from the US over to Taiwan. So this character is going to be different from Burger. It's going to be a bit more androgynous, a bit more bubbly, a bit more personality as well. I want to actually take on more of a character rather than just be myself as a furry. It is going to be a full digidegrade suit as well. And that's kind of exciting, but also a little scary because I have only ever worn a partial suit. Now, that could mean a lot more maintenance, but it could also mean a lot better, like, character acting because they see more than just the person that is wearing the costume, the people around the fursuit. So that is also something I'm super excited about.
So you made like the payment already, or like how's that been going on?
I basically have paid most of it. I still need to make one more, but that will not be until sometime next year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited.
So, yeah. So basically, that's it for me. Now, Michael, why don't you tell us more about what you've been up to?
Yeah, so for me, mainly kind of the same old, same old. I hate to sound boring, but no, like I said in the beginning, like, you know, this year was basically like classes, freelance work. I am a master's student, and that's, you know, basically been dominating my life. I started my third year officially at my institution, NTNU GITI, and I'm told that you can graduate within 4 years, but most people graduate within 3. So this is like the start of my third year. This would be my 5th semester, and then I'll need one more semester, so I'll take 6 semesters total, 3 full years. Like that's how it looks right now. And like I would say classes overall have been good. I'm kind of at the point where I'm doing like more networking and taking on more cases. Like, for example, I translated that book, Beast Fantasia's 10-year anniversary art book. That was technically Zilvin's book. That was a project that it was like a year, I think. It was like maybe 8 months, but it was kind of like one of those like on and off kind of things. Like we started like 8 months ago, but then there's like a few months break because of like FurMiT or Infurnity, I forget which one. And then we came back to the project. So that one took roughly about 8 months. But that was the first time anyone has ever approached me to be a translator for a book. And I felt so proud and so honored. And that's going to look great on the resume.
Definitely. Yeah, I appreciate that. You're always looking for more work, for more ways to really sharpen your skills and to make a name out there as a translator.
Yeah. You kind of have to
also,
as a freelancer.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see that you're working with Zilvin as well. I think Zilvin is a great artist and an excellent costume maker as well.
Yeah, Zilvin, like I said, working with Zilvin, it was JC was on the team as like the copy editor, and then I think Strifey was there as like the secondary translator / copy editor. So it was a 4-person team on that project. I also translated two more books in addition to that one, both about this thing called the Military Dependence Village. So what that is like after the ROC retreated to Taiwan in 1949, they brought the soldiers of the Republic of China they brought their children, their family, of course, like they would want to do that. And so obviously they didn't have those homes. They didn't have like the infrastructure to support like these like thousands and thousands of soldiers and their families coming in. So the military dependence village, it's called Zhencun in Chinese, and it's like these two children's books. They're not really like telling a moral. It's just more like this is like one of the child of the soldiers, I should say, and it's just like them kind of playing around, you know, in the village and stuff like that. So it's not really like, it's not like a memoir. It's not like an autobiography. It's not like telling a moral or something like that. It's just like, it's two children's books.
Yeah.
And I actually
would you call it like slice of life?
Kind of, yeah. I think that's good. Yeah, I think that would be a good descriptor. Yeah. And I got into this project actually because of my professor, Professor Su, who is my current professor right now for my thing is called Translation as a Profession class. And so so I do want to thank him for that. And then the next update I have is really just like my thesis, because I'm at the point where I got to start thinking about that. It is thesis season for me. It is thesis season for me, meaning that I'm at that point of my master's where it's not just think about it. I have to write it. And it has been a journey, because my thesis is about Su Bing, who is sort of like this. He's sometimes dubbed as like the grandfather of the Taiwanese independence movement. I'm enamored with him. He was just this amazing figure who always believed in Taiwanese independence, you know, throughout his life. He lived to be 100. Yeah. And he passed away like a few years ago, like in 2019, believe it or not. And so like he grew up during like the Japanese colonial rule of Taiwan, and he fought in World War II as like a spy, and he like was exiled to Japan after trying to kill Chiang Kai-shek. Because he was definitely like anti-Kuomintang, anti-KMT. And so like my thesis is a partial translation, I should say, of his autobiography. And it is a very difficult book, but it's so rewarding. I've cried several times translating, like reading and translating that book, and really like listening to his voice and listening to like his stories. Like it's 1,000 pages, so I'm not going to translate the whole thing. Like that's out of the scope of the thesis. Like you don't have to do that. But if I can get hired afterwards, like if like the publisher says, no, we like you, and if like the editor says, yeah, we like you, and my thesis advisor says, yeah, like this is a good project, then maybe there's a way for like either the publisher to hire me or the government to hire me. You know, there might be something there. Yeah.
Exactly. I think this is actually something that's right up your alley. Before this, before this, you were studying like history. So not only is this like a really interesting story, despite the more political slant on this is a really good topic to delve into. And the fact that you're translating it just for your thesis, I think that's really impressive. And I really appreciate the hard work that you've been putting into this, you know?
Yeah, thank you. It is extremely hard to read. Like I have to use like a dictionary like every time. I have it like in a separate tab. And I even talked to like the documentarian Felicia Lean. Felicia Lean, like I talked to her, I think it was like a month ago, like saying like, you know, oh, how's the progress on the documentary, that kind of stuff. But you know, that's all for the future, right? We'll have to get the thesis done first and see what happens. So fingers crossed.
Remind me to help you set up a little graduation thesis completion party once you're done.
Oh yeah, that would be so nice.
Yeah. My treat.
Sure. So in addition to all of that, though, in addition to my thesis and my classes and stuff, like the both of us, though, actually have attended several cons this year. So maybe we can talk about that for a little bit. Like, let's talk about like Tea Party. Let's talk about FurMiT, and let's talk about Infurnity for a little while. So Tea Party, what were your thoughts?
Well, Tea Party was not the first time I had been to Kaohsiung. I had also been to a separate anime-related event there called Fancy Frontier. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed my time at Tea Party over in Kaohsiung. Now, you've been to the city of Kaohsiung before, right?
Yeah, I've been there like in total it's been 2 times. Like I've been there once for a Tea Party like back in, I think it was 2018. I think it was either 2018, 2019. There was a year that Polar came actually. And then the second time was for Tea Party this year.
Right. I do like going down to Kaohsiung. I think the weather there it's a little bit more warm, but it's not too hot. So I still really enjoy the weather down there. There's plenty of good places to eat there. I really love.
It for sure is hot though. Like in the summer. Oh, yeah, it's very hot in the summer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like right now it's probably mild, but like in the summer, oh yeah.
More opportunities to eat like shaved ice and all that though, right? Yeah. But for the actual convention itself, for the actual event, the setup for it is very unique compared to other events in Taiwan. They are inside of warehouses, like warehouses by the harbor, and it's separate from the hotel, actually.
Yeah, that was actually one thing I didn't like. I actually didn't like how it was separate because, like, when we went in April, it was actually getting quite warm in the south. It was, from my understanding, it was actually kind of warm. And I personally found that, like, it was a little bit of a walk in the heat to get to the convention place, the location of the convention, I should say, because, like, the hotel was, as you said, is separate. I think if you're a fursuiter, it was a little bit tough, but even as a regular attendee, it was still tough, I think.
And that was actually not the only thing that was separate from the event itself. They also had rented out this bar space in a nearby, like, set of restaurants and bars and such for a kemo cafe. Like kemono, as in, like, the Japanese word for a furry character. Basically, if you got a sponsor or super sponsor ticket, you could go to this little cafe and have a fursuiter be the server for you to give you your drink or your dessert. It was cute, but if you missed it, I don't think you missed too much. It was just a nice little treat.
Yeah. It wasn't like the main star of the show, but it was just nice. Like if you had the, what was it, like the sponsor ticket? Sponsor and above, was it?
Yeah.
I think I was just a regular attendee, but I think it would be nice, like, if you like to take photos and if you're into that. But like, it was okay for me to pass. I didn't feel like I was missing out. I did kind of like the overall, like, appearance though, like the aesthetic of, like, the pier, and like there was some artwork there, and it definitely had, like, it was really nice to hear the ocean and see the ocean. I took some really good, like, night shots with Xiao on, I think it was like Friday night. And then I'm not sure if I took more shots at night. I think maybe not, but I'll just flash some photos of pictures I took. And I like that though. Like I like how there was, like, an interesting enough background to take photos with, like, especially with, like, the lights. Like, we went at night because we wanted to get the bokeh. So I've got, like, a f2.8 lens, and I was able to get the bokeh really well with that lens, and there was enough light that it's not just completely dark. So I do like how things looked, like, aesthetically.
Yeah, I think this is great. This is a good event if you're a photographer or if you're a fursuiter. There were other things to do, like there were artists and there were a few vendors as well. But
yeah, because, like, they had their artist alley inside, like, it was in the convention space, which was the, like, the repurposed warehouse, I think it was. But then, like, they partitioned part to be, like, the main event, so then they partitioned part of it to be the dealer's den, right? Or I forget what they called it, but yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of partition, the area where you had to where you could change into your fursuit felt kind of makeshift. It was just like a maze, like a white walls, just to go in and change into your costume, which is kind of weird, but it served its purpose. I'll just say that.
Yeah. What about FurMiT though? The one that was, like, in Miaoli, like, that was like, oh man, I can't believe what was it? Was it September? Was that one? Was it August?
That one was in either June or July.
Oh, okay. So, like, smack dab in the summer.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed my time in FurMiT just because the last time I was in FurMiT was in Tainan, and the area of Tainan that the hotel was in, it was a great hotel. I loved it. I liked the decor inside and the aesthetics of the place, but I think it was far enough away from anywhere else in Tainan that, like, you couldn't really just step outside the convention and, like, have lunch or dinner with your friends. But you could do that. You could do that this time in FurMiT 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was at a hotel that was next to some sort of shopping center, and plenty of different shops and restaurants around that area too. And
it's like also, this, like, complex. Like,
Yeah.
like maybe we can flash. Like, it was like a complex of like they had like sky bridges of like the convention center, the hotel, and like the shopping center. It's all connected, with sky bridges.
Yeah.
It was very convenient and like easy to get to food, to get to lunch, to get to dinner. And then there's of course the RT Mart across the street.
Right. I was just gonna mention that. Yeah, I think you were more happy about that than me, actually.
Oh yeah, like I like that because I mean it's so easy to like with the grocery store next to your convention / hotel. It's easier to get drinks and snacks for room parties. And I definitely appreciate that. One quick thing about the tea party that I didn't get to mention though was I did actually have a panel with Sakura Inu, so shout out to that guy. Maybe we can flash up a picture of his face and then a picture of the panel later. But we did have a panel about like how to prepare for American Furcons. And so like that was probably like the most interesting thing to me back at FurMiT. No, that was FurMiT. Yeah, and like I think that was the highlight for FurMiT for me. Sorry, like that wasn't Tea Party, that was FurMiT. And for Tea Party I found it like I didn't find it so interesting that I had like a fantastic time, but for FurMiT like I think I enjoyed it a little bit more, I think, but again because like I had something to do, right? Though I think one of the selling points for FurMiT was like they had a lot of panels and they ranged from a lot of things. And I think like, well, as I said, that was one of their selling points. Now the downside is that like 90% of the panels are in Chinese. So it's like that would force me to really like stretch my Chinese muscles. Like I would have to really focus in on what they were saying, what they were doing. Like if you're going to play a game, but they're going to play the game in Chinese, it's like, how do you communicate, right?
Exactly.
You know, so it's like I felt like their selling point was a lot of panels. They had like over 20 or whatever. But at the same time, like I felt like it was kind of geared towards like more local Taiwanese furs as opposed to foreigners. But I think that's what makes sense though. Like it is a Taiwanese convention after all.
Yeah, I understand that how you would think that way too. But then that also makes me think of the other convention we went to, which was Infurnity, because that has always been more of an international convention. And thankfully, the quarantine guidelines and the COVID restrictions had eased enough that we could actually have foreign furs attend Infurnity this year.
It wasn't really like to the numbers that we had years prior though, like because like Taiwan opened up later, right? It was like mid-October and Infernity's late October, so it's like it's gonna be really hard to ask someone, their boss, to like ask for like a week off or whatever, right? Like unless you're just gonna go for the weekend, which most people won't. You're not gonna fly on a Friday afternoon and then like or Friday evening and then like come back like on Sunday evening or whatever, like because you might have work on Monday.
Of course,
like most people aren't gonna do that. So like we had foreign furs, but it wasn't like up to like the hundreds. Or even 200s and 300s, because like that definitely was a thing like back in 2019. So we ended up losing a lot of our Japanese fur friends that would usually come to Infurnity, but like I still had a lot of fun though. Like there were still enough people from abroad that came that like I haven't seen them in like years because of COVID. Like I haven't seen them in like 3 years or whatever, 2 or 3 years, and I was like, that was really, really nice to see them.
Yeah. And there were plenty of local people that also came as well. Actually, 1,700, right around that number. So even though there was lack of foreign furs coming, plenty of local furs definitely came in to enjoy themselves at Infurnity. And
that's surprising to me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect this year.
For me, I was thinking that because like people spent their money on Tea Party and FurMiT, it's like, oh wow, then people are still coming to Infurnity. Like people ended up still going, and what was it, like 1.2K in 2019 or something like that, like 1.2, 1.3, and then it jumps to 1.7. And I was thinking like, wow, like people are still interested in Infurnity despite having like 2 other options. Like they would, well, because it's going to cost money, right? Like like assuming you did go to Tea Party and FurMiT, like it's going to cost money. Yeah, and that could be out of your budget. Well, when you want to go to Infurnity, that could exceed your budget, but like there was still growth, like overall, despite losing majority of our foreigners. And so like I'm just thinking like 2020, 2023 is just going to be massive.
Oh yeah. I just think that shows that Infurnity is still quite an important event to the Taiwanese furry community.
Oh yeah. It's like the largest con. It's the first Taiwanese Furcon, and it is like as of today, it is the largest Taiwanese Furcon in Taiwan.
Yeah. Oh, something else important. We had a panel at Infurnity as well.
Yeah, how could we forget?
Yeah.
How to start a podcast. Which is well, we're I guess we're experts now. Not really, but yeah, it was basically about like as it's what it says on the tin, how to start a podcast, but then like some discussion of the software that we recommend and some hardware recommendations and the platforms.
And not only just software and hardware, we also talked about like structuring the podcast, a little bit about like interacting with guests and making sure you have a good plan and schedule, and how to make it a bit more successful as well.
Yeah, like it was for like people who were looking for like guest-based podcasts, like, or at least for that part of the panel. And then like if you weren't going to have a guest, then still the other stuff would apply, like having a schedule, having a plan. Like those things would apply even if you don't have guests.
Yeah. I think the only thing we were really worried about is that it was the panel right before closing ceremonies.
That wasn't the only thing that we were worried about. Like there was also like we had to also speak in Chinese, and so since you can't really speak Chinese well, like basically what happened was like I took charge of the Chinese part, and so what I did was like I was talking with some friends to help proofread the Chinese script, and I basically read off of the Chinese script. Yeah.
Yeah, and credit to you and your friends for helping translate what we wanted to say to the audience into
credit
Chinese.
to Carbon and credit to Bacon. Those are the two guys who helped us out. Yeah, flash their faces on the screen.
Yeah, Carbon, if you're listening to this, I can't wait to meet you again. It was great to see you when you did come to Taiwan this year.
Yeah, he did come to Taiwan. I almost forgot about that. Like what was it like? I remember it was like a warmer month, like May. Was it? Yeah. And then Carbon's gonna slap me. Yeah, he's doing all right. He's a good kid.
Oh yeah. Now I think I was pretty satisfied with our panel overall, actually.
Yeah, overall I was pretty satisfied with the panel. I felt that it was a little bit different from the other panels. Like I just felt like it was more dry. I felt like the topic was a little bit more serious. It just felt like different. But I think like that's the niche, right? Kind of like goes back to like what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode about like being niche. Like this is a niche topic. I mean, there are a lot of like artists out there. There's a lot of streamers out there, but there are very few successful big furry podcasts. And I think we have potential to get there. But like I think like, getting selected, even if you aren't famous and you got selected, I think that's a really nice thing, honestly.
Yeah.
So thank you, Infurnity. Thank you, JC, for reaching out to us.
Yeah, thank you to JC. And I think we were also a bit different just because we were bilingual. I think that was another big part. Yeah.
We were probably like the 10% of panels that was bilingual, like 10 or 20%. Like most of the panels were only in Chinese. But I know there was a handful. There were at least like a few other panels. But I think that's cool though. Like, cause like now, like with the YouTube recording, like anyone, like whether it be from a Chinese speaking country or an English speaking country, now you can watch the recording, which is now on YouTube. You can watch the recording and it shouldn't matter.
We will link that recording down below in the description as well, so you can check this out after you're listening to this. Yeah.
I remember like having like a really epic room party on Saturday. I hosted a room party. Like Jason was in charge of the room. Like he was the guy who booked the room, and we always like to have a room party either like the Saturday or Sunday. Usually the Saturday. Like we went to Costco like a day or two before. We bought like gin, we bought whiskey. Ray, shout out to Ray. He helped bring some of the bartending equipment, like the mixer, the shaker, and like the juicer. And so it was making a lot of like honey-based drinks. I want to try to make something like maybe like a little bit easier to make. And I also think I might like clarify the menu, the wedding menu, if you remember that. Maybe we can flash a picture of that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, because I think people didn't understand that you didn't have to just order the 4 things on the menu. Like you could just ask for Coke, right? Like if you don't want to, you could just just give me the can of Coke, and I would do that. But people, I think they only thought you can only have those 4 things. So I'll probably clarify that next time. But that thing, because like it's really cool to have that menu, because like that was printed on some really fancy ass paper, and I got it right here. It's sitting like right in front of me. It's on a pile of books, but I've got like the menus right in front of me. Like I like to call it the international room party. because there were people from Korea, believe it or not. There's one guy from Korea, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, obviously, New Zealand, US, Canada, Taiwan, obviously. I think there was one person from Japan, but I can't remember. I think someone from, probably not though, because I know a lot of our Japanese friends, they couldn't come. Yeah. And then I saw some old friends, saw some new friends. Muma got drunk, so that guy got drunk. I remember he kept on asking me for drinks. I was worried he was gonna throw up, but no, like that party.
Yeah, you are a good bartender. You know what other people's limits are. I think that's great.
I worked for 3 hours straight that night. Did I tell you that? I worked for 3 hours straight on that Saturday, right. and oh my gosh, like that was fun. Like it was hard, but it was fun. So that was the highlight for me for Infurnity, and I believe the highlight for you was the concert, right?
Oh yeah. So I've already talked about the concert. I already talked about how I was so excited to be a part of that, so honored. But also, once we were done with the concert,
you just came right over, right?
Yeah, I just came right over and it's like, hey, let's have a drink. And
you stayed for a while, I think. Like you stayed for more than an hour. It was like 3 hours, I think, right? Like all the way to like 2, maybe.
Because like even though it was a room party with a lot of people talking to each other, a little bit crowded, it was generally just a good place to wind down, despite the crowd, despite all the chatter. Despite how crowded it was still a really good place to just have a drink and relax and talk about how the convention was so far. And don't tell anyone, but I decided in my tipsy state that I would be a little bit nice and leave a tip for the bartenders.
Yeah, well, there was only one bartender, it was me, but yeah, like I remember Jason telling me like, and maybe I had to ask him, but I do remember him saying, at least I think I remember he said that this was like the first room party he's been where he's made like a profit, because like obviously because he's like there's no cover charge, so you wouldn't expect a profit, or you would go even because obviously you're dividing up the costs, but there was no cover charge. Yeah, and he's just doing it because he's a nice guy. Like he helped us buy like the booze and the snacks. And it's very nice of him. I mean, we bought like cheese, we bought like cold cuts, we bought the liquor obviously and the drinks and non-alcoholic drinks. But like I remember like there was like coins and bills on the table, like the bedpost or whatever. And I think it was just his loose change. And then people thought that was the tip jar, so they just kept leaving like coins and bills, and like I think there was like it ended up to be like 1,000 NTD. I was like, oh my god, we ended up making like 1,000 NTD like in one night apparently.
I didn't know it was that much.
Yeah, it was funny. Like we talked about this like on Discord like a week ago. Yeah, I remember Juno was like telling me like he showed me the picture. That's why, and Juno showed me it's like 1,000 NTD. I was like, oh shit. 1,000 NTD, but of course, like I think, like we didn't ask for anyone to do that, but it was nice that people did that. Sure,
I may have given at least 500.
Thank you.
I was feeling generous. Yeah, anyway, yeah, great room party. Can't wait for next year.
Yeah, I'm excited for next year. I mean, like, if it wasn't raining, because, like, we didn't say that yet, but it was raining. So, although we had access to the balcony, a lot of people were, like, stuck inside of the room. And we could really only comfortably fit, like, 20 or 30 people inside. We could fit, like, 30, 40 people outside. Well, maybe not 40, but, like, 30 people outside. So, like, maybe 50 people total. And... So, like, it was really crowded. There was to the point where, like, people were standing outside, and JC and Zylvan came over, like, around 11 p.m., I think. And then, like, I remember JC had, like, the tiredest face ever.
Oh, wow.
And then, like, I went outside to go see, like, someone told me, like, oh, JC and Zylvan's outside, JC Zylvan. I was like, I need to go see them. I need to go. And they were scared to go in. Like Zylvan told me later through PMs, like, yeah, we went to your room party. Thank you for providing, but we couldn't go in because like there's too many people. I was like, yeah, that's true.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough.
And then like, well, like it is what it is, right? That just means we have a kick-ass party. But yeah, but no, like it was raining. That's why. Like at Infurnity, like it was raining on Saturday. Like the first Super parade was like a light drizzle, and so we were just really worried that like at night it would rain, and it did. Like it rained Sunday night as well. So it wasn't really a good day to be outside, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and at least we still had the first Super parade outside.
Yeah, I wasn't really a fan of like the wetness and the parade. I would have just held it indoors, but that's, that's just what I think.
Yeah.
So like for the pod though, do you have like a favorite moment of the pod this year?
Yeah, glad you asked. I think my favorite moment was when we did the interview with the Vietnamese furries. I was definitely really, really keen to hear about a younger furry community from a country that not many people think about when it comes to furries, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Vietnam has actually been on my travel list for like the longest time too. Like I'm always watching different videos about things that are in Vietnam. Bit of a tangent, but did you know there's actually an abandoned water park near Da Nang in a city called Hue? And
Not sure. I did not know that. No.
yeah. And I know this because I saw it in a music video and it really piqued my interest. So I'm always trying to find little things about Vietnam and other places that I want to travel to eventually. But now knowing that there are furries there that could show me around and hang out with while we're on vacation, I mean, that's also kind of what I did when I was in Singapore with Halud and Snares.
Well, I did that almost every time I left Taiwan, like for the Philippines, for Japan, for Thailand, for Malaysia. Like I always found locals.
Yeah.
And I met Kusu before, I met Bio before, but I really want to meet like other Vietnamese furries. And like I'm actually like still in talks with the Vietnamese furry that Kusu recommended, who like lives in Oklahoma. Like I've been just like talking back and forth with that person. Their name escapes me, but they seem nice. Yeah. But for Vietnam, Vietnam, just like Burger, like I have not been there personally, but I would love to go. Yeah, I wouldn't put it high on my list, but like I think like it's definitely on the list. Again, knowing that there are locals there, and again, I don't speak Vietnamese, so like I would just be a dumb foreigner. But I think like with locals there, like I would definitely like feel much like safer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always Duolingo as well. They have a Vietnamese course.
Yeah, there's Duolingo, but like I don't know. My experience has been overall kind of bad. Like I don't think it's that great of an app, but like it's just my opinion. Like I just need something more in depth. But like I think like it wouldn't hurt to learn like a phrase or two, like before going. Well, I mean obviously more than that, but just something to get me by if I were to go Vietnam. Otherwise like yeah, just like go with your friends, I guess.
Yeah, I don't disagree. That's a good way to think about it. I also like that it was one of our more successful episodes as well.
Yeah, like was it 1K? Like I think it's over 1K views, and I think
Yeah.
it achieved 1K views in a span of like 2 weeks, which is
Yeah.
pretty good for us. Like no other video experienced that growth, that rapid growth for us, and I think that was a really really special thing. Like
Yeah.
I the only other like I think it's like 2 other episodes, like the one with Titania and the one with Halissa. Those were like the 2 episodes that I think they're over 1K, but it took them like a year. But this took like 2 to 3 weeks, and that's a really really fast growth. Yeah.
Yeah. It's great to see that there are a lot of people that are excited to learn more about Vietnam and its furries. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a sizable number of the viewers came from Vietnam, but like other viewers like might have came from like Southeast Asia. Like when I looked at the demographics, yeah. Like
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just I was just happy to get the like maybe not. I mean I'm not really sure how many people outside of Vietnam saw it or outside of Asia, but it probably wasn't that high. But like it was still like the numbers are still good though.
Yeah, so that was my favorite moment of the podcast. But Michael, why don't you tell us about your favorite?
I'm gonna kind of cheat because like if you're talking about this year, I think I'll have to agree with you. It was the Vietnam episode. But if you're talking about like the podcast like overall for the past 2 years, I still think like interviews from abroad, like the productions, like going like making that video and then like doing the organization work, like the messaging, the editing and the cutting, like that really, maybe because it was during COVID, but that really like there was something special about it, right? And like the thing is that like everyone is forced to watch it technically. Like if it was a physical con, you would have the choice not to watch it, right? Like if it was like in a panel room being shown, you wouldn't have to go to that panel room. But for Infurnity Online, because that was Infurnity Online 2021 last year, and it's going to be streamed, right? It's not like there's multiple streams. It's one stream that everyone watches. So like having like 300 people watch your stream, but then like it's funny because like all the non-Chinese like speakers came to that particular like program,
Yeah.
that particular item on the agenda. And like I saw like Dusty was there, and then like Tail was there, and like Kyochi was there, like in the Twitch chat. And so that to me, you know, we weren't physically there, but we were all there like spiritually, or just like in this like online kind of meetup, I should say. And I feel like that was something special. Like yes, we're all apart, but we all came together like in the name of Infurnity. And like, you know, these are the people like I've met like 98% of the people in that, you know, in that video, in that panel technically. And you put a lot of effort into the editing as well. Like we had like many clips to get through and all that, but like, and of course, like, you know, we're reviewing them, and it's just okay, use this, use that, use this, use that. And so it's just like combining all these things together. Of course, we didn't film the interviews. We asked people to submit them, but I always wanted to do something like that, like this like mosaic, this kind of like collage kind of thing, and like see what people think about like Taiwan. And it in a sense, it kind of reminds me of the podcast, where it just goes back to the goal of the podcast, where like we want to know like more about people, we want to know more about people in Asia, and like, you know, each episode is a slice into that. And so like to me, like I feel like it resonated and it really followed the goals of the podcast. But then it was like specifically it was about Taiwan, but I feel like I said, it still really maintained the goals of the podcast. Like it's really hard to describe in words. I feel like how I feel about like that particular production.
Yeah, I know you mentioned my hard work working on the editing and all that, but you also put a lot of effort into it as well for the translation, as well as a few other.
I took about like
volunteers
a third.
Too.
I took about like a third to a fourth, somewhere around there, of the translation work. And then we had 3 other translators. It was like Carbon, Ray, and then Kuro. And it was technically Carbon doing the final proofreading. Like it was definitely a lot of work on his end, because it was still, you know, it was still a lot of work. But like to edit through all those subtitles. But yeah, definitely shout out to those guys. Thank you so much for helping us out. Yeah.
And one more thing, my favorite moment from interviews from abroad was definitely that plane.
Oh yeah. The one like the one that I told you, like, okay, add in the plane.
Yeah, that was your
like,
suggestion.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, like it was like the plane. Like it started with Tail. I think like Tail was talking, and then like Alder was talking, and then Alder like moved his hand, and it looked like he was gonna bap something out of the sky. I was like, can you just like add in a plane flying, and like blew up? It was like you know, it's like, I hope this is tasteful, but but no, oh my god. And then even JC made a comment. I was like, oh my god, dude. That's hilarious. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk more about the future now, the future of the podcast. So there's like some things that we want to tell you guys that will be changing about the podcast. One of them is no more live streams. The main decision comes from, well, there's a few reasons. One of them is like the lack of time, mainly on my end, and like coming up with topics and coming up with things to say, coming up with questions. And then I also think related to that is like lack of focus. Like what is it that we are doing in the live streams that we aren't already doing in the podcast, and why does that make a difference? Or what is the difference, right? Like,
yeah, that's just been the main crux of it, is what are we doing different that we can't do on the pod? And part of that was like how many guests we could invite to these live streams and just have them talk for a longer time, which that's always good.
Which you could you technically could do for the pod. So like it just goes back to the question, like, why does that make a difference, right?
Yeah, good point.
And so it's just like, you know, like I said, like what is the focus, like what is the purpose? I guess you could focus and purpose. And it's like, I also feel like in a sense, like I feel like the podcast episodes were suffering a little bit because there wasn't enough time being spent on the podcast episodes. Of course, that's just how I feel though. It was definitely like an experiment. And I'm totally fine with that. Like, not all experiments work out, and you don't always have to like follow up on them. But I think I learned something about live streaming, and I feel like, you know, it's nice being, you know, live and stuff like that. But I think like maybe it might come back in the future. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell you when and where. But for now, we won't be doing live streams.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that we also want to announce is like restructuring of the podcast. We want to do a little bit more long form with the podcast. We want to do something that's a little bit more than an hour, like maybe hour 20, hour 30. And that'll give us like a little bit more time to talk about the topics we do want to talk about. Like that might include like maybe some more tangents. That might include like going down a road for like 10 or 15 minutes and seeing where that leads us. And so like it's also having a little bit of like more freedom and flexibility with the content. Because I think like if you have like a 30-40 minute piece of content, it's still fairly long, but you can only do so much in 30-40 minutes. And I think we're at the stage where it's okay to go beyond an hour, and I think that's fine. And you know, I usually tell people like if you can't commit to an hour, then like just watch 30 minutes like one day and watch 30 minutes the other day. Like there's nothing stopping you from watching the podcast in parts.
We could also use it as like a deeper dive into the interviewee's life or the interviewee's work as well. Yeah.
Well, I think like that's like really an interesting and like more creative part, I guess, of the podcast episode, where it's like, because everyone's lives is going to be fairly unique. I think like through the lives of people, we can answer the second question, or the second goal, I should say, of the podcast, which is like compare and contrast the Western and Asian fandoms. And I think like through knowing these people, that's how we'll understand and kind of take a slice out of the second goal. So each episode is kind of like a slice into the life of Asia, or Asian furries, I should say.
Yeah, I think that's going to be similar to like the interviews with, what was it called? Between the Sheets from like Critical Role.
Oh yeah. The interviews, I think like the podcast episodes, like I feel like that's going to kind of be like where we'll be going, like in that direction of like the Critical Role interviews, to be specific.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of those. Yeah. So then we also have a little bit of a documentary that we still have in the works. And we're not going to talk too much about that, but I think I'm excited about that because, as you know, Michael, I started my contribution to the furry fandom through this documentary, this thesis film that I made back at University of North Texas. Yeah, so this project would honestly mean a lot to me. And it's not the only documentary that I've made for the furry fandom. I've also made one about furries with autism and how their lives are and how the furry fandom has helped them. But what can we actually say about this documentary that we're working on?
We'll definitely be working on it next year, and we're looking at a release date of sometime like fall or winter of next year. At this rate, like, you know, talking to the subject of our documentary, which I don't want to reveal just yet.
Right.
But yeah, we'll probably have it released sometime at the end of the next year. Now, we can still do other things, and we can still do other documentaries in 2023. It's not just that single one that we're focusing on. That's just one thing we can say.
Exactly.
Like, you know, we might be doing some vlogs. We might be doing like other kinds of videos, like I don't know, like reviewing something, or we might be like going on like a trip somewhere. I think those are okay, because I feel like we're in Taiwan, and like it would be a shame not to show like how life is here. We obviously can't keep flying around the world, like, you know, with our money. We can't fly around the world and like make too many vlog videos right now. But I think like, you know, that's something like a little bit out of our reach right now. But we can show Taiwan. And I think like showing Taiwan, like the furries in Taiwan in particular, like I think like that's something that there's worth doing.
This documentary is going to be about someone in Taiwan who's we're very excited to talk to and to show off their life story.
Yeah, we can say that much. It's a Taiwanese furry, but we can't say anything more than that.
Exactly. Yeah. So before we end this episode, I just want to say a big thank you to all of our viewers and all of our guests so far who have been a part of this production.
Yeah, thank you so much. You know, like it's been 2 long but somewhat short years, I feel. Like it feels like we haven't been doing this for a long time, but I think we have. And, you know, the viewers who have like stuck with us like ever since like episode 1, you know, like I mean, I don't know your names, but like I know there's people who have been here with us for like the 2 full years. I think Gantos might have been one of them actually, but like you know, shout out to that guy. He's always excited about the episodes.
Shout out to Gantos. Shout
out to Gantos. Shout out to Skrill. Skrill also messages every now and then. I think ramen also, like ramen was like popping in and out like on the live streams, but like it was just like every once in a while, so shout out to that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's been like an amazing like 2 years like of this project. And when we're looking at the growth and all that, it's just like what, like we mentioned like 253 subs in 2 years, which is like small to some people, but to us, like I think that's a big deal. Like for something with our topic, for something with our niche, like I feel like that's a respectable growth.
It's very actually respectable. Yeah, it's
it
very
actually
respectable.
really grew faster in the second year. I feel like in the second year things were like more refined and things were like getting ready to like take off a little bit more. Like we laid the groundwork in the first year, and I think that helped like build up the audience like in the second year. It attracted more people.
We have a lot more people that we want to bring onto the podcast, a lot more amazing people. So we're really excited to bring those people onto the podcast as well. And I don't think we would have gotten this far again if it had been for the people subscribing to this channel, following us on Twitter, and watching our videos. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. So we are at the end of the episode. This is time for us to say our social media shout out.
So first, let's mention the podcast itself. This podcast's social media handle is @FoxandBurger, and that will be the same as our YouTube handle as well. That's a nifty new feature that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, @FoxandBurger. It's quite simple. You know, we've had that handle for the past 2 years, and easy to spell.
Yeah, easy to remember too. And then for me, you can find me generally under the name of Lightning Runner. Now for Twitter, it is Lightning Runner, but the first I in Lightning is a number 1 because I am elite hacker. And you can also find my YouTube channel down in the description as well. That is also Lightning Runner. And before I forget, we will also have a link to a YouTube video of the recording of our panel that we did at Infurnity. So you can check that out as well.
Yeah, so for me, my handle is pretty simple as well. It's Fox Snack. It's FOXNAKH, and that's it. You'll find me on Twitter @FoxSnack, and then also my YouTube channel handle, I should say, is FoxSnack as well. I mainly use these two things, thinking about going to other sites and exploring my options. But right now, it's just those two things. All the other links are on my link tree. So for my Twitter, yeah, you'll probably see a lot of like my daily stuff, like just like stuff I've eaten. So, you know, food pics, and then also just like other updates about my life. My YouTube channel is still fairly dead, but I mainly do like voice acting stuff over there, like maybe impressions. I don't really update my YouTube too much, but like I definitely have some plans for it next year. So would appreciate any kind of well, as they always say, like, you know, hit that like button and smash, you know, hit the bell icon and all that and subscribe. So would appreciate that as well.
And with that, this has been the last episode of the Fox and Burger podcast of 2022. This has been Burger.
And I'm your co-host, Michael the Matcha Fox.
And we will see you in 2023. See you, everyone.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year.